seeing that center of circulation. And when you see this right here, you can take the storm, you can divide it into quadrants, and it's usually this side of the storm where you have the worst weather, and you certainly see that here. So the winds over here are going offshore. Meanwhile, the winds here coming onshore, going from the Gulf into land. So that does a couple of things here. That is pushing the water, physically the winds pushing the water onshore, and that's why you get those waves, but you can also eventually get the surge as well. But then also you notice that moisture coming in. That's where you're going to see that steady stream of moisture and some of the heaviest rain. And right now, winds have been gusting in Gulfport stronger than 30 miles an hour, getting close again in South Louisiana to 50 miles an hour, including New Orleans. And we're going to check back with meteorologist Reynolds Wolf in just a moment. But as Stephanie mentioned there in Morgan City, she lost power late last evening, the whole city there. And just as we've been speaking, power outages have gone up several thousand, now getting close to 60,000 power outages for customers. So you can imagine, that's one utility bill. So however many people live in that home, that many more people will be added to that number. So these are just outages by customer, and the threat for some of the strong winds that could eventually produce more power outages continuing through the day as this storm slowly does work its way inland. And you can see here's 5 o'clock. Tonight, this afternoon, I should say, into the evening hours. And this storm will have made landfall by then, however, barely inland. And watch it slowly moving. And now here's 5 o'clock in the morning tomorrow. And going forward, the center of the system by tomorrow evening, now getting closer or getting over the Louisiana-Arkansas border. So one of the calling cards, I think, of this system, Reynolds, we know, will be the heavy rain, potentially life-threatening flooding, and it's because of the slow movement of the system. One of the big factors anyways.
Absolutely. We certainly saw our share of flooding. Just back let's see, it was last Wednesday around 6 o'clock in the morning local time. It was insane where the skies opened up and the rain came down. And the corridor, which is just to my immediate right, a few blocks down, they had water that was, my gosh, above ankle height. I mean, it was just ridiculous. And you hit the trifecta here in New Orleans where you had a flash flood warning, you had a tornado warning, you had a severe thunderstorm warning all at the same time. Now, we happen to be in Canal Street. What's interesting is you often have during tropical systems a wind tunnel effect here, which will make the wind, which could be already relatively strong, even stronger. So it's almost like just an additional blast that you'll have. Usually debris comes flying through here. It's just an absolute tempest. It gets crazy. We did have an opportunity to speak to a great gentleman just yesterday. That is Senator John Kennedy here of Louisiana. And he offered this advice for what we expect rolling forward in time.
The state is so much better prepared than we were in the past. I was here through Katrina in terms of preparation and execution by the state and the federal and the local governments. It was a dumpster fire. It was embarrassing. Government let people down then. We're much better prepared today.
Absolutely. Preparation's key. No doubt about it. I mean, it truly is. And I'll tell you, what we've seen here has been preparation around much of the city. A lot of the storefronts, you'll actually see sandbags that are stacked out. A lot of homes doing the same thing. I got to tell you, it is very tough and frustrating for them. So I'm sure so many people, we drive through neighborhoods just yesterday, and from the flooding we had just earlier this week, there are carpets, there's furniture that have been taken out of homes, now resting on sidewalks trying to dry. But sure enough, now we have additional moisture coming through, all compliments of Tropical Storm Barry. So again, what we've been dealing with here is just the wind, which is picking up as we speak right on cue. But in terms of precipitation, Stephanie, what we're getting is occasionally a feeder band that'll come through, drop rainfall, and then as soon as it starts, it stops. Just that pattern that's beginning to develop here. Stephanie, in terms of precip, how much do you think you've seen there already this morning?
You know, it's just been very light, Reynolds, and it's also been wind-driven. So, there was puddles here, puddles there. Obviously, no flooding yet, though there is that possibility here where we could see, a foot of rain potentially. So we will be watching for that. They do have pumps here, just like they do in New Orleans. We have a flood wall that we'll show you as well. But we are under flash flood watches anywhere from Florida Panhandle to Alabama, to Mississippi, to Louisiana and Arkansas. So an entire area, that means that the conditions are favorable for flooding. Now, we are actually under a flood warning. That means that it's imminent or it's occurring. And right now I'd say it's imminent. You know, there are some very low-lying areas that even we were talking with some officials yesterday that even just a south wind, they see washover, right? So those areas are already actually seeing that washover. So as we head into next week, it's just going to rain out. This thing is moving very slowly and will continue to do so. Nothing's really going to pick it up and carry it off that quickly. So how much more rain is to come? We're southwest of New Orleans, so there's a better chance that when you see the radar, which we're going to show you, there's a massive batch of rain headed right in our direction. That's going to rain out, and we'll continue to see that heavy rain. Speaking of heavy rain, how about where we were yesterday in Mississippi, you know, getting crushed in Bay St. Louis this morning? There's a threat for storms also as these bands roll in, and there's a difference in friction at the low levels versus the high levels, and you could see some spin-ups. But that satellite radar tells a story right there. It's, you know, New Orleans is kind of in that dry slot a little bit. Where we were yesterday in Waveland, Bay St. Louis, getting hammered this morning with the rain, just absolutely hammered. And then we are just north of that big batch of rain that's going to be rotating in. And that's what we'll see all day long. You know, Mobile, Alabama, you could see that heavy rain. It lasts all the way into the evening hours. And then, of course, our Torcons, you know, in the 3 and 4 range from Arkansas down towards southern Louisiana, respectively. So all the threats are there. Chris, a little deceiving with how ragged this thing looks, but you've seen some good gusts come through here, and it's going to get worse, certainly, before it gets better.
And Stephanie, I know you're constantly looking at the latest reports, the latest data. What are you going to be watching in the coming hours that will either that can either surprise you, meteorologically speaking, or just something that the wild card that might be out there? What are you going to be looking for?
You know, that's a really good question, Chris. I think I'm going to be looking for to see if this thing can wrap that moisture around, right? There's all that dry air, especially on the west side. But this thing has been fierce. This has been, what, a week now since it started in the Midwest? And it's been fighting sheer and dry air this whole time and is still managing to have winds at 65 miles an hour. So will it overcome and be able to wrap fully around?
All right, thank you, Stephanie. We'll get back to you in just a moment. We want to get to some new video we have coming into the Weather Channel right now, showing you some of the water and some of the debris in the water and some of the water being pushed by the wind, both the debris and the water being pushed along there. You can see the water certainly appears to be in some places that it's not supposed to be, and some stuff in the water that likely isn't supposed to be in the water. As we look at some of this new video coming in, parts of South Louisiana already seeing some inundation with the flooding. It's like a little bit of a swirl or an eddy there in the water. We also want to get you caught up right now here at the Weather Channel with what we know, the latest on Tropical Storm Barry. The governors of both Louisiana and Mississippi have declared a state of emergency to help speed up the process of getting resources into place. In New Orleans, residents and visitors have been asked to shelter in place as Barry moves onshore today. And New Orleans is issuing voluntary evacuations for residents outside levee protection, including Venetian Isles, Lake Catherine, and Irish Bayou. All right, and in New Orleans, we want to go back to meteorologist Reynolds Wolf. Reynolds.
I gotta tell you right now, the air feels like soup out here. I mean, it is humid as can be. You have the occasional wind that comes through. Gusts are stronger every now and again, but it's the rain and the subsequent flooding that could come that we're really concerned with, no doubt. As the system continues to chug its way in our direction, what we can expect are more of those problems. Remember, the ground saturated. We had some flooding just days ago. Still, there's standing water. You'll find it in a lot of places around town and, of course, in the hinterlands as well. Hard to find a place in Louisiana that has not experienced flooding recently and still may do so as we roll forward over the next several hours and days. Full coverage continues right here on the Weather Channel. Again, we are tracking Tropical Storm Barry. Team coverage. Will it become a hurricane? We're going to give you the very latest on the system.